greatest engineering undertakings in the history.
Freedom came under attack.
Hello, my name is Carlos Lopez, PhD candidate in the School of Historical, Philosophical, and Religious Studies at Arizona State University. I'll be talking to you for the next few minutes about the types of testimonies that you will find on here in this section of our website concerning Native American genocide. The genocide of Native Americans is a difficult one to tackle as a student researcher. Unlike the genocides of the 20th century, the killing and displacement of the Native American people in the United States has very little video or audio testimony. Most of what we know firsthand comes from written records, both from the natives and U.S. perspectives. During the so-called Indian Wars of the 18th and 19th centuries, soldiers from both sides left letters and oral accounts of the removal of natives from their lands. As more and more Native Americans were sent to reservations or schools, their stories were collected and written down by journalists and historians of the time. These testimonies are important because they show you not only how natives at the time were treated by the U.S. government, but also how the U.S. justified their treatment through the idea of warfare and how they were able to carry out the removal. Also important are resources pertaining to the Indian Removal Act. The Indian Removal Act was a law passed by Congress on May 28, 1830, during the presidency of Andrew Jackson. It authorized the president to negotiate with Indian tribes in the southern United States for their removal to federal territory west of the Mississippi River in exchange for their homelands. Jackson, along with the majority of the citizens in the country, viewed the demises of Indian tribal nations as inevitable. If the Indians of the South were to survive and their culture maintain, they faced powerful historical forces that could only be postponed. The documents here show the hardships that tribes faced as they were removed from their homeland and marched west in what is now known as the Trail of Tears. Another important set of resources are the testimonies from Native Americans that went through the Indian boarding school system. These schools were established in the United States during the late 19th and early 20th centuries in order to educate Native American children and youths according to Euro-American standards. Children were usually immersed in European American culture through appearance changes with haircuts, were forbidden to speak their native languages, and traditional names were replaced by new European American names. The experience of the schools was often harsh, especially for younger children who were separated from their families for the first time. And finally, the use of oral histories will be indispensable for your research. The most important collection is the Doris Duke Indian Oral History Collection. Over a 5-year period beginning in 1966, many American West centers conducted interviews in 6 Western states. Ultimately, the Doris Duke collection totaled 1,458 interviews, and as of today, there have been over 2,000 total interviews conducted with Native peoples. These oral histories are recorded and in various collections throughout the nation. Unfortunately, many of the collected interviews have not been digitized due to the time and money involved. There are, however, a good number that are digitized, and these are linked to you from our site for your convenience. These records are compiled on this website for students to use them in their research. It is important to note that the testimonies are emotionally charged and very important to the individual storyteller. Even if the interviewee was not around during the genocide depicted, it is still an important part of their memory and culture. Approach these documents for what they are: a new perspective on the established history of the United States and the West. We thank you for your time and hope that your research is fruitful and rewarding.